Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk specifically about running a Gargant campaign in a tabletop role-playing game. So what is a Gargant campaign? What is a Gargant? So a Gargant is a large, lumbering beast. It's usually between 75 and 150 feet long, and you can think of them as ground-based dragons. So what I'm talking about today is a campaign where your player characters form a team that hunts and slays Gargants, okay? And then harvests their different parts and protects their community from these type of Gargants, right? So the specific reason why I'm talking about this today is a new game by the name of, a new video game that's recently been launched by the name of Dauntless. And Dauntless really does a tremendous job of showing an example of this type of campaign. And it really inspired me to think about this type of campaign, and what I'm presenting today is a skin of that. So, of course, you basically running a Dauntless-inspired Gargant campaign, right? So, and similar touchstones would be Monster Hunter. A lot of people are familiar with Monster Hunter. Dauntless is, one of the reasons why I'm pointing you to Dauntless is, if you already played it, you know how awesome it is. If you haven't, just like every other modern video game, it's got a really strong wikia, and it will show you every single aspect of the game. And that game is really, chunked up in perfect slices so that it easily can be skinned and then run as a unique standing tabletop role-playing game. Fantasy, I would say this is low to high fantasy based adventure, right? A Gargant campaign can easily be run in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It can be run in Dungeon World. It can be run in Index Card RPG. It can absolutely be run in Pathfinder 1 or 2E. And essentially, I think those are all fantastic. You can also run it with Tiny D6. There's some, pretty much any solid system rule setting you can use to run this, right? So let's talk about a Gargant campaign. So first of all, the general structure is your non-player characters form a team of hunters, okay? And essentially, they work together to slay Gargants. Now, the way Dauntless manages this is perfect, and we should absolutely use their model. So basically, the non-player characters will have a free haven, like a safe haven. Their city is basically physically separated, right? And the way Dauntless does it, they called it the Shatter Isles. So there's these islands that float in the sky, and the main free city where the player characters live is free of these Gargant. It's free of in Dauntless they call them behemoths, but this city that your player characters will live in, it will be free of Gargants, right? And actually, it's quite robust. It's healthy. It's separated. Sometimes it'll be attacked by creatures that fly, but generally it's a sanctuary. It's a free city. It's successful, and they send out these teams of hunters to hunt these Gargants on other shattered isles, which in our game we'll call those shard shells, right? So there's this idea that there was this greater landmass. It's been split up into shards. Those shards are of different sizes, and essentially at that point, whenever the player characters are going to be brought in to fight a Gargant, they'll be brought in by an airship that flies over these shattered these shard shells, right? Now this structure really brings a lot of story aspects to a tabletop role-playing game, a fantasy tabletop role-playing game campaign setting that are really unique and that really free you from a lot of the conventions of a general dungeon delve, right? So basically, it's really excellent in that one of the things it does is it gives you the combat, right? Each session there's going to be at least one of these Gargants that is defeated. There'll be excitement and fighting, right? But it also has this free city, and in this free city, there's a whole lot of things that are happening. So one, you're going to have the open story of what do the player characters do in the city, what are their relationships in the city, and one of the things that's really, really unique and I think really special is basically that social aspect of the game is going to become very, very important. And the reason why is equipment and that normal grind of I have a +1 sword and now I have a better piece of armor and now I have a magical item, that is gone in this game. And the reason why is basically all the player characters need to do is keep their skill sets strong. All of their equipment is going to be provisioned to them on each Gargant hunt, right? So the city builds armor, and it builds weapons, and it builds magical items, and all of those are kept in a central spot, right? And so essentially, they have groups of these Slayer hunters, and whenever they're sent out to defeat these Gargants, they're equipped with the best equipment to defeat that specific Gargant, right? So they're almost like race cars, right? You equip them for what's needed for the current track, right? And this is really wonderful because, one, you can kind of gear your team up each time. You can have a Q scene, like James Bond's Q, where they give them equipment, and you can build a relationship between the player characters and Q. And they don't really need to be on that constant hamster wheel of I need to get better gear, I need to get better gear, I need to get better gear. And that will allow your game to focus on these social relationships within the city, right? And also allow your player characters to enjoy all kinds of cool new equipment on each run, right? And so this really gives a really unique structure and frees you from a lot of the normal tropes of a dungeon delve, which is really great. And there's nothing wrong with dungeon delves. I'm just saying this is a great thing for like a season campaign, right? Like you could run this in the fall of 2019, start and do October, November, December, right? And maybe at minimum you get one session per month. That's a 3-session campaign arc. Maybe you're able to get 2 or 3 sessions in each month. Now you're looking at 6 to 9 sessions, and that's perfect to allow the players to kill quite a few of these Gargants, explore the city, build relationships, wrap that story, right? And you got a good memory. You got something in a kernel that really has value, right? Now I want to kind of highlight what are some of the exciting things. What are some of the exciting story elements that you can tell in a Gargant campaign, right? Well, one of the things that I like is I really like to get the player characters involved in the politics of the region they're in, right? So that they have what they do matters, right? So your players are going to be defeating these Gargants and magical item, essentially the bones, the organs, the fluids of these creatures that come back, they all have value, right? And the player characters have some control over what goes where, right? Because one of the things they can do is they can bring back whatever, they harvest from these creatures, but they could also hide certain parts on the shard shelf, right? And then tell, flying ship captains to go back and get those parts later if there was a desire to move resources to a different group than the main city itself, right? Now, why would the player characters hide material from the groups that are actually provisioning them? Well, one of the reasons why, and I think this is one of the story elements I would really like to explore, is the main city has been doing great. It's really robust. It's safe. But there's a growing desire among the populace within that city to plant a new city, right? And basically the primary governors of the free city continue to say yes, we really want to do this, we want to create this new city, but the reality is it's become clear that they're just dragging their feet and they have no intention of really breaking off a significant portion and allowing there to be enough resources for this new free city to actually stand. So the player characters are going to be in the middle of this, right? They're going to find that there are essentially insurgents, right? Or actually they're, even if you want to call them rebels, who are getting ready to build a cache of material, steal maybe, 10% to a quarter of the flying ships, and actually head out with a small number of families to start a free city, right? Without the express permission of the city governors, right? that's exciting, and the player characters then have a decision, right? You can allow the player characters to say, yes, we want to see this free city created, or no, we're going to turn these rebels in, right? So there's some tension there. It's kind of, to me, that's really exciting, right? The other thing I think I really like about this is, basically, to me, I love risk. I love to see if, player characters are going to live or die. You want there to be a little bit of snap, in fatalities. You want there to be a role, in my opinion, in every game or every other game where a player character can die, right? Now, you want to have that as a risk, right? But the reality is, I think what is going to allow a lot more punch in each one of these sessions is having a situation where you've built up some non-player characters and they are being brought in as assistants, like they're learning to be they're learning to be these Gargant slayers, these Gargant hunters, right? And by the way, you could do that as different levels. You could have hunter, slayer as different levels that they work toward. And but building up these relationships where people care about these non-player characters and then would care about their safety. They might even take risks to make sure that they're safe and they're brought back alive. A hunter or a slayer could be the son or daughter of a favorite tavern owner or someone who serves muttons to the player characters, all those kind of things. But I think, and then, so you have all of that, and then in addition to that, one of the really interesting parts of the game, too, is you can start your game, you can have your Gargants, and you can custom build a Gargant or two for every single session. But one of the things you want to think about, too, is why are the Gargants here, right? You absolutely should not answer that before the first session, right? Look for clues about what the player characters think, and have this be a discussion. Why are these Gargants here? Are they being created magically? Do they just grow in the under areas of the shard shells? Are they being portaled in from other dimensions? Right? Are they the merging of magical effects and beasts that are in the wild? But having this mystery that can be solved on exactly what the Gargants are and why they're there, I think is really, really fascinating. So if you get a chance, definitely go take a look at the Dauntless video game. I would just read the Wikia. I don't have a ton of time to play video games, but I absolutely love the video game worlds, and it's easier and easier to read these read on these video games. People do an absolutely great job of just presenting them and allowing you to explore the world without actually playing the game. And there's just a huge number of great ideas. That is a fantastic video game, and it just cries out to be skinned and turned into a tabletop role-playing game. And you don't need to wait for anybody to do that. You can run it with any of the systems, like I said at the very beginning. Dauntless is really a treat. Take a look if you haven't seen it. If you have, let me know what you think. What are some other ideas that I might have missed to make a Gargant game better? I'd love to hear your opinion. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.